Some good games there. Something about the way you've been talking about Diablo 4. It's got my interest piqued in a weird way. It's actually something about that thumbnail, like the cover art of the game.
The cover art, and that changes too with the seasons.
Oh, really?
Well. Yeah.
Maybe what? Maybe that's what it was, because I had the most recent one I had seen, and I was like, I really don't remember this being released. Like I was like, I don't remember Diablo 4 coming out, but maybe it was because the image looked different.
It's just the Gauntlet Legend / Gauntlet Dark Legacy that we play now. It's exactly what it is.
Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And Randall Nolery.
Hey folks.
And we are back, as always, to talk about some video games. It sounds like all three of us have been pretty busy with life and work and everything in general lately. I know I definitely have been. Just started up a new job relatively recently. I think I've mentioned that a few times now, but I've been coming home and pretty much fried by the time I get home. So I've been like, normally I kind of lean into my action-y, arcadey, roguelike, precision platformer kind of experiences, depending on the day, obviously I play stuff like Kingdom and whatever else too. But like lately I've been just kind of like coming home and looking for something like, okay, what can I like sink my teeth into? And also like looking for something to talk about on the podcast, like knowing like, okay, I've kind of burned through some of the things that I was going to talk about on a Save It for the Cast or this or that. And like, okay, I'm either replaying the same old things because that's my comfort food game at the moment because I'm, mentally fried a little bit. Not terribly, but, enough to where I'm just like, okay, I'm just playing a random, Mario level or something. It's like, okay, I'm not going to talk about New Super Mario Brothers again on the podcast. So nonetheless, I was like, I'm looking for something short and sweet to play. And I've been combing through my wish list per usual as of late. And I saw that the game Florence was on sale for $2. And this is a game that's normally it's only like $6. So it's just, I don't know why I hadn't picked it up sooner, but nonetheless, that $2 price tag was what put me over the hump and just said, okay, I'm finally grabbing this $2 for a game published by Annapurna. That's pretty much all you need to say on my end. And I know right before we started recording here, I booted up the game just to play you guys a little taste of like the intro sequence here, like not even the sequence, but the title screen and the music. And I'm just such a sucker for that. Like the minute I booted this game up and like the little piano music comes in and then there's like a string swell, and it's nothing out of the ordinary or anything, but to me it just like really kind of plucked at my heartstrings a little bit, and I was like, okay, I know this game's going to be I knew a little bit about it going into it and knew that it was like a short and sweet experience, kind of an emotional tinged narrative experience, but it looked like kind of light on that side of things. Like it didn't look like overly heavy, and it was kind of based on relationships and whatnot. And I'm going to try to keep it spoiler free-ish. This game's been out for a little while, and I think most people that going into it kind of know what they're getting into. And like the structure of like the story kind of reminded me a little bit of the game Unpacking, which I think was developed, after the fact. So I think it was, a chance that it was influenced by this game, but just the way it was like kind of presented, like basically in the way that game Unpacking, you're kind of like going through that game had a little more gameplay-ish elements to it going on, in different regards, I guess, because there's some gameplay in Florence as well. But in Unpacking, like basically once you finish like a level and unpacking your room, it would like kind of present you as like a memory of like a state. You're kind of like remembering this every move throughout the course of your life. And in Florence, you're kind of like remembering a bunch of sequences of events through a course of a relationship. From the moment you like meet someone and the moment you go through all the different motions of this particular relationship. And I'll try to keep it kind of spoiler free. Again, this whole game took me about 45 minutes to play through, and I was by no means like ripping through it. There's pretty much no dialogue for the most part, but like it's just like a bunch of little like vignette sequences that are like almost like WarioWare meets Mario Party mini games, but like not nowhere near as like frantic, or like you don't have to like really like the first thing you're like presented with is to brush your teeth, I think is the first, or no, actually it might just be the alarm going off and you just literally hit the A button and it snoozes the alarm and then it goes off again, and you hit you do that a couple times, and you wake up, and then you're presented with brushing your teeth, and then you can use the touch screen on the Switch, which is where I'm playing this. But in this case, I was just playing it on the controller on my TV. So like I'm literally just moving the joystick left and right to move this toothbrush around on my teeth until it fills up a bar to tell me I'm done with brushing my teeth.
So on Steam, it actually had it in a bundle with Gorogoa. And
I could totally see that.
Yeah, that like the whole like scenes like setting, like little puzzle solving, so to speak, or like I think that lends itself to like
and
that
the hand drawn kind of animation or kind of cartoonish style. Like Gorogoa is more of like a painterly kind of style, but again, they're both Annapurna games. And again, Florence here, a little less puzzly in that regard. Like
right.
You're not really like one of the next things you do is like you're like at your job and you're like plugging in some numbers on like a spreadsheet, and you pretty much just have to find there's like 9 little squares, and there's one number that doesn't have a match, and then you just have to click like, okay, here's two $8, and I just have to click on those two, and then they disappear, and then clear them all until there's just that one last tile left, and then you move on to the next thing. Or like your mom will give you a call, and then you can either decline the call or answer the call, and then you can it'll go through like a series. You won't even hear what your mom's saying, but you can pick between like, I'm busy at work, Mom, or like I don't need you to find me a boyfriend, Mom, or like you have like a few different things you can say, which don't seem to have any impact on the there were times where it's just like the same options popped up 2 or 3 times in a row. So I'm like, it just seems like it's randomly picking things. But like then there's times later in the game where like you and the guy that you meet that you're, having this relationship with, like you're having your first conversation, and you get these like speech bubbles that pop up, and you're like filling in, like you'll see the shape of the speech bubble, and then kind of like in a Mario Party mini game style, you're like, there's like puzzle pieces that fit and fill up that speech bubble. And your very first conversation, you have to like, there's a bunch of pieces and you got to piece it all together. And then as you get to know each other better, it's like, oh, it's just 2 or 3 quick pieces that snap together really easily. And then like, oh, but you're in a fight. So now the pieces are like kind of jagged and jangly, and you can like, and you're drifting apart, and they're like, the pieces will be kind of floating. So like all the gameplay elements are just kind of like leaning into the narrative as well, really lightly. But it's just such like an expertly crafted experience from like the minute you fire it up. Like I said, from literally on the title screen, I was just like, this is like magic. You just got this like side profile of Florence's head and like her hair blowing in the wind, and like then that music playing. And I'm just like, right away, I was just like, this is going to be a special experience. And I was not by any means disappointed with, playing all the way through it. It just felt like really, I don't know. It felt like so... I don't know. It's like very like a specific story, but at the same time, it's like anyone who's ever been in a relationship of any kind, even if it's like, even obviously it's like leaning into the romantic side of things, but like even if you've just had a friendship close to somebody, like it's just so easy to relate to this. And like, I don't know how some developers are able to do that like so effortlessly. Like the game, like it just felt like I was just like meandering my way through this experience, and like, I don't know, it was just really a weirdly like special game where I could see myself like down the line just being like, I want to fire this back up again. And I think it was even originally developed for like a to be played on mobile,
That's cool.
Handheld, because like even some of the story like sequences are meant like on the Switch. Again, I'm just like holding down the joystick and like scrolling down to like see the kind of like comic book panels, if you will. But on a phone, you'd literally just be like scrolling, and it was just such a cool experience. Again, for $2, no brainer, which I see it go on sale for that price many times. Before this, I was kind of mad that I hadn't picked it up sooner. But again, even at $6, albeit a kind of short experience, but knowing that going in, it's like I'm happy to like support this kind of artwork being made. And
no, I was just like thinking like this is reminding me that I really need to play Quarantine Circular, the like Biffle games. Like I think it's a sequel to Subsurface Circular, which is a game that I love.
Yeah, I remember you raving about that one.
Yeah, and like I was just like, God, I have that in my library, and I just need to get around to playing it. But you kind of do have to be in a mood for like a narrative-based game, because like I remember Subsurface Circular, I think was like maybe like 2 to 3, maybe 4 hour long experience, but I did it in one sitting. Whereas like this is like what, 1.5 hours?
No, 45 minutes, like, literally.
God,
and I'm talking like, I didn't decline any of my mom's phone calls. So I'm assuming I did the most,
very sweet.
I did the longest, playthrough possible. But that's probably not true. I'm sure there's maybe like some little hidden Easter egg type things and stuff like that. But like, yeah, it was just such a short and sweet little experience that I just found to be, pretty special. I definitely recommend checking it out on whatever platform, you can check it out on. And cool to see, like, because I feel like most of the Annapurna stuff I've played is always like kind of like that like AA, AAA, not AAA, but like it's like that indie, but definitely indie with like a serious budget behind it, like almost like a Devolver level, budget behind it. So it was kind of cool to play like a smaller scale, little bite-sized experience from them. But then, another game that I fired up on Switch after that I also picked up on sale for super cheap was this game called Nuts. And the reason this game was on my radar, apart from the fact that it just looks really cool, it's got this, like, it's a first person, think like it kind of reminds me a little bit of Firewatch, like in the presentation and the setting and stuff like that, and like the theming and whatnot. And I've only played a little bit of Firewatch, so take that with a grain of salt, but you're just kind of like out in nature, first person narrative, kind of light puzzle solving adventure. But again, this game caught my eye partially just because it looks cool. It's got this like kind of washed out, like these, I don't know, it's like cool limited color palettes. There's only like maybe 3 or 4 colors at a time. And then you're basically playing as this, like, scout ranger or something in the forest. And it's kind of mysterious right off the bat. You're like kind of dropped off in this area and you got to pick up this piece of paper and run it through the fax machine. And then after that runs through, it like triggers this phone call and you pick it up and there's this lady on the other end and she's telling you, hey, welcome to the team or welcome to whatever, happy to have you aboard. And we just need you to set up this camera outside and, do this quick test, set it up by this tree, and here's all the GPS tracker, this stuff you need. They print out like a little fax machine. I really like the world building and stuff here. Like you grab the fax out of the machine and you pin it up on the cork board, and you can, if you walk up close enough to it, you can literally like use that to reference like, hey, what's my current mission right now? But anyways, so like the first or second mission, I can't remember exactly what they do, but like they kind of have like a day-night cycle to the game, not in real time or anything. It's like triggered by you essentially triggering it. But at first you just get this one camera and they tell you there's like, hey, there's a squirrel coming down this tree. We got to see what's going on with this squirrel. And you just set up this tree. You see it coming down at night, and they go, okay, we need to actually find out where it's nesting. So they give you a second camera, and then since you got it on footage on the first night, you kind of like, essentially that squirrel every night is going to do the same path that it always does. And then you place these cameras, and then now that they give you 2 cameras, and now at the point I'm at in the game, I actually have 3 cameras. I haven't actually played that mission, but I have 3 cameras and 3 monitors. So I basically, during the day cycle, I can go out and adventure in the world and place those cameras wherever I want to place them, angle them wherever I want to angle them, and then go back to my trailer at night, hit record on the camera, and go back to my trailer at the daytime and then hit record. That's what triggers the night cycle. And then I sit there and I watch the feed on the cameras, and then I try to see where the squirrel's going. And then I figure out, and so it seems like kind of normal. The first one, you just find their little burrow. It was pretty easy. I got it in just a couple tries. And then like, okay, found where it is, and you just snap a picture of it and then print out the picture, fax it to them, and it's like, okay, great picture, which it took me a minute to figure out that I was supposed to like print the, I was like, what the hell? I took a perfect picture of this thing. Like, what do they want from me? But you also have like a handheld camera as well, for, I'm assuming, different things down the line. But then the last thing I did in the game was like, I followed a little bit longer of a path, followed the squirrel into like this kind of hidden cave, and then like, not only was it like a stash of like acorns and nuts or whatever, but it was also like a bunch of like dynamite and stuff like that. And then like, when you fax the picture in, like the lady on the other line is like, what's all this dynamite going on? Like, what are these squirrels up to? And like things are like starting to get like a little more mysterious, and you can tell like the squirrels are like plotting something. Trail cam. And like, so I'm really kind of curious to see. Number one, it's just kind of like fun to like see like just that ebb and flow to like, oh, let's see where this thing goes. And you think you're on to like, okay, this is where I think it's going. You set up your 3 cameras. I guess I've only done 2 at this point, but I'll set up my 2 cameras. Oh, it's for sure going this way. And then like, oh, nope, I guess not. But it's just like everything feels really like tactile in the game. Like I actually watched a trailer after I played a little bit and realized that not only can you set up the camera, but then you can actually like grab like a handle on the tripod and then like angle the camera where you want to angle it. Cause I was like, that's weird that you can't aim the camera really. But you can. You have to actually like grab it with your hand. And you just everything feels so physical and tactile. Like even when you're sitting down and like watching the videos, like you have to actually like fast forward and rewind and like freeze the frame right at the right moment so you can print out the picture and like click the little wheel that like moves it to the monitor that you want to print the picture from. Like it's just so, I don't know. It's just like I really love, and again, that art style of these like really washed out, like it's first person, but it's not realistic whatsoever. It's like kind of cell shaded and like pastel, and like there's just maybe like 3 or 4 colors. And then I got transported to a new area of the park, and now this new area is like a new color palette. So it just seems, I don't know. I'm really, really digging the core like kind of game loop so far, and the mystery and narrative kind of, it's like a light narrative situation.
So I saw comparisons between this game and Outer Wilds, and like it does seem like, as you're describing it, it's like, oh, the squirrels are on the set path and you're just trying to figure out like
that time loop I can see. Yeah.
Oh, that's I love it. I love that that's a, I don't know, subgenre or of like physics set piece puzzle.
Yeah, that's an interesting comparison point. And yeah, I didn't even finish the thought that I had at the very beginning that I was saying the other reason this was on my radar is because our friend Megan Carnes she'd either mentioned this game, or I had either just seen her playing it while on my Switch and thought, oh, she usually has pretty good taste or interesting taste in games. Like she's always playing something that like just piques my interest in one way or another. So that was another reason why I was like, okay, if it, and again, it went on sale for $5. It's normally $20, so it's like on the slightly pricier side, but it definitely feels like, the voice acting is really, really good. Like everything, like all the sound design, like when you're hanging up the phone and like even just the cord dangling, everything felt just like really satisfying. So it's a really well-made game. Like the $20 price tag is not too steep by any means. I'm just not somebody who like springs for every $20 game. So
sure,
seeing it for $5 was like, okay, this is a no-brainer to scoop it up for that. And so far I'm really digging it, and I'm intrigued enough to like want to see a little bit more. Who knows if I'll see it all the way through because I never finish any games, but I'm intrigued enough to like kind of know what's going on with these mischievous squirrels here.
You finished Florence.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, if it's under an hour, I'll take it down. Oh, too funny. But yeah, just a couple of fun games I've been having a good time with on Switch lately. But why don't I kick it over to Randall here for a little update on a game that you've been continuing to chip away at yourself here.
Diablo IV. Yeah.
Yes.
It is
tried and
true. I don't even
true.
know if I was like, how are you chipping away at it when it's a live game? Like this thing is practically an MMO in its own right, almost.
Yeah, is this like new content that you're playing?
Yes.
Nice.
Constantly, actually. It's kind of nuts. So, like, this game...
That's really cool.
Originally, like, I pre-ordered this because Tina and I were huge fans of Diablo 3 back, on whatever, PS4. I think we played it primarily there. And so pre-ordered it. It came out literally like a year ago, like June 2023. And we just played it ever since. It's just kind of like the main go-to, like, like, what do you want to play? You want to play just, boot up Diablo 4 for a little bit and just kind of grind a couple of side quests or whatever, and, go back to the town, and the blacksmith turns all the shit that you got into materials, and, you maybe sell a couple of things, and, nothing too crazy, but, it's satisfying all the same while you're kind of debriefing about the day or whatever, and just kind of how it goes. It's been our go-to practically ever since. Obviously, we played other games, but that is our as a couple, our go-to experience, I would say. They've just continued to update it. I think they just are on season 4 now, as of like a month ago. But before that happened, we're like, okay, should we actually start playing through the campaign? And this is not in my inner nature to play through the campaign by any stretch. I'd rather explore and do side quest stuff for the most part. But, the campaign unlocks the horse. We wanted to have the horse. It gets around the map easier to have the horse. So, all right, we want the horses. The horses were even part of the pre-order bonus to get a certain kind of horse MacGuffin that's got blood on it or whatever. So, I got this horse already. I might as well ride said horse to get around faster and open up treasure chests, explore new areas. Every time you find a new area, you get an experience from that too, and whatever. Yeah, didn't even realize until like a month ago there's like PvP areas in this game and all kinds of stuff. There's a lot here. Okay. And for those not in the know, PvP, player versus player, like you can kill other actual players in this Diablo game because it's a live game. You can't pause this game effectively.
That's what you meant by live game. When you said live game, I just meant like live updates, but both, I guess you mean. Yeah.
In both regards. It is an online experience. You cannot really play this game offline.
Interesting.
So also when you say seasons, like does it have like what is that structure like?
Mostly in my
like in comparison to Diablo 3.
Yeah, in my experience of interacting with it in 4, it's more like here's some new stuff that we added and we batch it together and call it a season. And maybe that also includes side quests, but I've never paid enough attention when those title screens come up to know whether or not. And let me restart my video here because it just froze, and that's going to make it hard to talk about this. We're working on old equipment here, folks. There we go.
Yes, I'm back. There we go. Back in action.
Yeah.
But it's not like time locked quests, or is it like where it's like?
I think there is. To be honest, I just never pay attention.
I wonder if they're leaning into that terminology too, just because that's like the common like Rocket League, Fall Guys free to play terminology.
Like Overwatch.
It just means new update.
Like a Blizzard property where there's like Battle Pass. Do they have that sort of bullshit as well, or?
They don't, although they did just announce an expansion is coming in the fall, which is kind of nuts to me because we've still not even uncovered the whole overworld map of this game in the first place, and they keep, like I said, adding things. And you could it's got all the MMO tropes, like they just added like pets, you could unlock pets and blah blah blah, like it's all that stuff. It's all of it.
Yeah.
And it's, I guess it's kind of interesting in a way because I've always been allergic to MMOs. I just never I want to play other games. I already get stuck on games as it is. I don't need something that addictive to bring upon myself that I also have to probably pay a monthly fee for, and thankfully that's not the case here. And now it kind of jogged my memory in like one of the previous seasons, or at least seasonal events. There was like a Lunar New Year thing happening, and there was some theming around that, and you definitely did have to do stuff within a certain kind of tight time frame to get the certain types of equipment or unlockables or MacGuffins or whatever. And we didn't realize that till the last couple of days of it, and we're trying to rush through some stuff. So there's some of that at play too. And you're watching like other players are like walking through areas or like can battle with you. I think there's kind of like some clan stuff going on. I think we just got sorted into one because we never selected one, but it seems like that happened. This is the type of level that we're interacting with it on. It's very it's a live game, but we're just playing it like it's an offline co-op game for the most part. Right?
Nice.
Yeah. Good. Clicking yes, and just moving along. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of really well done voice acting, but a lot of it is just like it's a little verbose, and you just kind of let's push it through. Let's keep going. We need to get our experience level and get our MacGuffin bag and keep going. But before this update happened, there was this like main campaign fight because we wanted to get our horses. It's this Elias fight. He's like one of these big characters, and we're like beating his ass because we're way over leveled because we never did the main campaign. and then there was a bug, and we just got stuck in we're like still damaging him, but he's like invulnerable. It's supposed to be where like you kill his minions that are like soul connected to him, and then he's eligible to be damaged, and it kind of happens in stages, but that never I think we beat the little minions too quickly, and then it glitched it out where it never progressed past that point. And I was frantically searching because I can't pause this thing to figure out hey, what's going on with this bug and what can we do? And that happened for about 10 minutes. And then we didn't play that game for a few weeks.
Yeah, as you do.
But then we came back and, of course, updates happened. This game seems to get updated like weekly at the very least with like major, like gigabytes, like updates, like big updates. But yeah, now, all that to say now, this huge update that happened like a month ago in May is like totally reworked again. Like even to the point where like these different, like the blacksmith and the armor person and the potion person are in different places. They're kind of better clustered together for like quality of life experience in these towns that exist. And like there's now these new items and like even the visuals seem like they've been kind of tweaked and upgraded and take better effect of like HDR stuff. And like it's just we're like, is it just because we're more awake now, or is it because this update happened that it's like it just seems like it looks a
little crisper or something?
Yeah.
I do kind of miss like I don't know, like I've got a little bit of like sadness about it's like with these constantly upgraded or updated games that have some like or seamless patches that just like get rid of old versions of it. I was like, I kind of am sad that like we don't have, like, here's the jank version of it. Like it's kind of impossible to get that because like the broken or like less optimized version just doesn't exist.
Yes, because I couldn't imagine that you could even boot it, even if you had downloaded it and then disconnected your system. Right. I don't think you could do anything with that. So, it is interesting to like ride the wave that way. Like I used to play a lot more PC games back when I was like a teen, and it kind of feels kind of like that to some degree. Even there's such a major overhaul that like all of our upgraded items that we had prior that we were equipped with are now tagged as like legacy items, and you can no longer upgrade them or anything else. It's just like cutoff point. It's like, oh hey, you're a year into this and however many hours in, and now the game is starting is what it felt like. And
it's like, almost like it's kind of like it's like a hybrid of like a free to play game meets like an early access game kind of.
It's
like they're kind of like marrying those two things at the same
early
time.
Access for
games
sure.
as service like bleeding in. Like it's so
early access, but a full priced game, I presume. I know it's on Game Pass, but like I actually did download it, so I should actually fire it up at some point.
Oh yeah, because it's on Game Pass. Yeah.
It's like I have no reason to not at least give it a shot.
You already know you're not going to like it though.
I know, but I do like the presentation of it a lot. Like I really like the way it looks and the way, which to be fair, I kind of like the way 3 looked, but I do tend to the little snippets I saw of 4. I did think it looks a little more like I remember when 3 came out, especially initially. Like I remember people thinking like, oh, it's so like garish and cartoony, and like people really kind of hated that. And like but I do like how this 4 looks a little more like dark and gothic, and
there's
just a little more
like
a little more like menacing.
Yeah, there's cool elements. And you can tell in like the major campaign dungeons that they're like very explicitly designed, because I think there's a lot of procedural generation happening on some of these like side dungeons or cellars or whatever that you might come across when you're on your horse or whatever. So kind of cool that way too, because there's a lot of like explicitly designed statues and crumbled over things, and like like, hey, that's cool. You look over that cliff, there's that town over there. That's sweet. But so now we're finally finishing this campaign stuff because we're kind of locked out of more upgrades otherwise. So, but it's like we're so overpowered that it's kind of too easy, and the loot stuff that's dropping is more or less useless besides MacGuffin materials. So it's just kind of pushing through.
Yeah.
I'll talk about this again when the expansion comes out and I pay $40 more for the privilege.
Jeez, is it that much?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, geez, man. Well, hopefully they probably won't add that expansion to Game Pass. That's for sure. But you never know.
No, probably not.
Yeah, I still need to fire that one up just for curiosity, morbid curiosity.
Yeah, just quickly build a character and just kind of mess around with it a little bit. I'd be curious to hear how it runs on the Xbox One.
On the One, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's it. That's all I got.
Nice. Yeah, why don't we kick it over to John here to wrap us up.
Yeah, well, I'm going to talk about 2 games, and I think I'm going to start with the more descriptive, intensive one, just because I don't want to end on describing a base 16 game. So the first game I'm talking about is Hexle, which is a PUNKCAKE Délicieux game that Kevin had me pegged right from the start, where he's like, this seems like a John game. And
it was I booted up, I was like, this is a little too big brained for me. I think John might like this game.
John,
and that's not to
John
say
likes not. If Sudoku was a little bit harder. And what Hexle is, it's a game that's based out of hexadecimal, which is a 16-digit or a base 16 numbering system. So you go 0 to F. If you've ever used color codes on computers, that's in hexadecimal.
Yeah. Okay.
So it uses 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E, F. And that makes it really easy to put into a 4x4 grid. And so it starts to use some Sudoku rule sets of you need to have one of every digit in this 16 grid, and the way that they start aligning those groups of grids by each other, you can't have the same number in the same line or row or column based on its position next to another one. But then it starts adding an additional rule set for the placement inside the grids, where hexadecimal also has binary properties to it, where every digit can be expressed as the sum of 1, 2, 4, and 8, where 0 is the sum of none of them, 1 is just the sum of 1, 2 is just the sum of 2, 3 is the sum of 1 and 2, 4 is just 4. Like, it gets... when I started playing it and doing the tutorial, I was like, I don't know if I've got the mental bandwidth.
That's where I was at. Like, I played the tutorial and I was like, they started throwing like shapes at me and talking about bits, and I was like, I don't even know if I understood what I just played already. So I was like, that's not to say that I'll not ever go back to it, but I was just like, not right now, and I haven't had a chance to go back to it since.
Yeah, but like, I think it's such an elegant puzzle in a way that I have not, like, it's one thing when you have a puzzle like Baba Is You that has like really like complex systems where like the base parts of it are, pretty straightforward or like intuitive, but you can do really incredible things with those types of puzzles. It's like a little bit
meta and stuff like that. Yeah.
But like, to have something like this game, Hexle, and like it be so like basic or like very streamlined, and it's like it's so incredible to me that someone could make a new game, a new puzzle like this. Because like when you look at nonograms or Picross games, like that was like one of the instances where I was like, oh, I don't think you'll be able to make a new puzzle like this or a new genre of puzzle like this. And I've played tons of different, word games, and Ken, which is a arithmetic based Sudoku, and those never really grabbed me as much, or I was like, okay, this is kind of a novelty, but this is just such an impressive puzzle game that, it also has daily and weekly challenges. Where
it's the perfect game for a daily, and I knew that they had that in there.
Yeah, and like it's an algorithmic or procedurally generated puzzle because it's just math. Like the other thing for understanding how the grids are I don't know what you would call them, 4x4 squares internally,
tiles,
is that
whatever.
The bits, which are 1, 2, 4, and 8, which are also exponent values of 2, including 2 to the 0th power of 1. Yeah, God, it's fun. Anyway, is that those bits cannot be in the same row or column as each other. So then the cross sections of those 2 bits then are what the possibilities are for the placement of the other numbers. And then like 0 and F kind of are wild cards because 0 can be placed anywhere and F is a combination of any of them or all of them because it's 1, 2, 4, and 8. For instance, 3 is always going to be the cross section of 1 and 2. 6 is always going to be at the cross section of 2 and 4. And like these are the ones that there are only 2 bits that it's comprised of, whereas 7 is comprised of 1, 2, and 4. So it can either be at the cross section of 1 and 2, 1 and 4, or 2 and 4. So like cool. It's once you grasp the rules, then you start seeing patterns. And it's just, it feels so good to learn a puzzle. Like, and I know that might be a specific thing to me, but if that's what you like, if you did Sudoku or did Picross and like started internalizing the rule structure and really then start thinking about like the puzzle or the puzzle structure. Like once I was doing the Mega, which is a 4x4 collection of the 4x4 grids. So there was a one rule set that I discovered after doing like 4 of them in a row that as soon as I realized that, I was like, oh my God, this is a shortcut for when I do this every day. It's just so fun. I love math. Math is fun.
I'm looking on their Itch.io page, on PUNKCAKE's Itch.io page for Hexle, and they've got a really helpful GIF about halfway down that page that I've just been staring at on a loop, and it just... As you're explaining it, it's just like unlocking my brain.
It's so good.
It looks so cool.
And I think this is yet another game that started out as like, I don't know if they made it for Ludum Dare or one of the different game jams, but I think
they have a free version available too, in addition to like the full version.
But I think what they do a lot of times, like when they make a game jam version, then extend it to like a full, they kind of like just tweak that jam version and like kind of release it as a demo. And then, or even just like, make like a post jam version as the demo. And then like, hey, and if you like it, buy the full version.
And there is also an additional part of it in the settings that I only messed with today when I was finishing up one of the weeklies, which are the giant 16 by 16 giant 4x4 grids. It's kind of hard to describe. They have a setting which I think it's called like autofill or autocomplete, where it will X out or gray out the the decimals that are impossible to place, and you can have it based on if they're already in the 4x4 grid, if they're already in the line, or if you have placed the bits already and it's an impossible combination of the bits. So if you're having a hard time visualizing it, like I initially was like, oh, let's see what it looks like with all of them on. And I was like, nah, this is too easy. I need it only just showing me, because the thing that I keep messing up is if I've already put it in the 4x4 grid, because it's just a little too many characters to parse on like a first glance, as opposed to like a Sudoku with a 3x3 grid. And but I've started thinking in hexadecimal now, and it feels so good.
That's the best sign of the puzzle game. Yeah, once you start like crunching little mini puzzles in your head, you're just like, okay, this game's in my, got its teeth in me.
Mm-hmm. And then the other game that I wanted to talk about is a game called the Gnorp Apologue, spelled GNORP, made by Maiko. And it is an idle game that is, it's kind of every idle game is a meta commentary on idle games, because as you play them, it kind of has to acknowledge that there's not much there outside of setting up mathematical formulas and like trying to maximize rate of expansion or progression. So
like tipping the scales almost a little bit.
And knowing when you are running into a wall. Like a lot of idle games, I'm not sure if it's in almost every idle game that I play, but it kind of has an ascension or a reset mechanic where you will then start over from scratch, but with additional perks or like a skill tree or something that then makes the numbers go up faster from the beginning. And then you can progress further, because there's always a part in idle games where you will stall out, and it's either you've built your skill tree or your constructs or whatever the like mechanic of the idle game that you're playing is specific. Like you've built it in a way that is not optimal, and then it will offer you a chance to rebuild it and like use a little bit more, have a little bit more understanding of the mechanics or what the push and pull of the progression is. And a thing that I really love about this game in particular is that there are a lot of mechanics that are in like ebb and flow, where so what you are is a small little pixel Gnorp, and you are slamming yourself against a rock to create shards, and then you are harvesting the shards to build other things that help you hit the rock harder. And that is
like an army of Gnorps, right? You're kind of like controlling like a bunch of them, like almost like it's almost like a little bit of like a village builder, city builder, kind of like light mechanics and stuff.
And like the other thing is that every idle game I've played and have enjoyed has to have some level of humor to like cover up the fact that is like, this is a kind of ridiculous thing that we're asking of you, is to like not play, but play, like kind of manage this like auto game.
Yeah. It's like you're like sort of going through the motions, but you're also like making minimal decisions, but I don't know. It's
an
interesting.
To have something that keeps you engaged, something that pushes
hook you in
forward. And I remember like Kevin was over when I first booted it up, and the first couple things like give you is like, oh, your Gnorp will like hit it for this damage, or your Gnorp will like carry this shard at this speed. And then there was one that unlocked, and it was just took up the entire screen describing what the process was, and it was overwhelming. But the very last bullet point was, this is the longest tooltip in the game. And I was like, oh, thank God. Like this is made by people who understand. Like
it was so perfectly like, cause I was watching John play and reading along as well. And it was like, so, like, as I was reading it, I was literally thinking like, oh my God, this is getting overwhelming. And then like as I got to the end of reading it, it was just like, oh God, that's perfect. Like if you were even having a thought of being like, you know what, this game might be a little too much for me. Like they almost acknowledge like, okay, there's a lot. Was it the fire arrows? It was like something.
Either the fire arrows or the ice arrows. And then I will say that today I did unlock a perk that was very long, but it also said, this is not the longest tooltip in the game. And I was like, all right.
That's good. Yeah, it's got a very like kind of almost like a Pico 8 aesthetic to it a little bit, like very minimal. It's like kind of like a really like stark black background with like just kind of like white outlines to everything and like little splashes of color here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoyed watching John play this one. Like John kind of is the person who even like turned me on, or even maybe aware of the clicker kind of idle genre of games. And then after having played like a couple of the ones from Sock Pop in the past, like just dabbling with like that 2-in game and a few other ones that I've toyed around with, like watching you play this one, I was like, this one looks pretty interesting. It was a fun one to just kind of watch come together. Like you said, it's like basically like almost like in that Wilco.
It's also like a physics diorama. as well.
Yeah, in that. Well, I was gonna kind of off topic, but I was gonna say in like that Wilco documentary of Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. Like somebody makes a comment of like how they like would take a song that they had written and like try to like deconstruct it to like the point where it's like, how can we strip this song down to where it's like it still feels like the song, but there's like not as much there anymore. Yeah. And that's like sort of what these games feel like. It's like, let's take like the game and like strip everything away to like the just bare bones nothingness of like just adding up numbers, and then like, but then like just make enough tweaks to like. And I don't know why it's satisfying to just watch those numbers either go up or go down at different rates.
It's got a lot of personality too, though.
Yeah, the personality is the big point. Yeah, for sure.
And especially like it being a sort of physics diorama. Like as your Gnorps are hitting the rock, it has like a chance and a variable of how far the rocks or the shards fly, and then how fast the runners are picking up the shards. So there's just a ton of particle physics just flying around the screen. And
it's really satisfying just to watch in action.
And especially like when you go idle, like the camera then just like if you're not moving your controller at all, the camera disassociates from its placement and just starts following Gnorps around. So like even though you have hundreds of them on the screen, the camera then just starts like following one, and then you actually see is like, oh, this climber Gnorp is like
what's this
moving
guy
from
up to?
One area to the next, and then it's climbing up this giant pile, and then it's throwing stuff off. It's such a like ingenious thing to do with the game while it's kind of passively running or running
it almost
in the
like turns it
background.
into like a screensaver. Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it was cool, like especially like because you had like those Gnorps that were like getting like the jet packs or whatever, and they're like going like way up, and like all of a sudden the camera was just following it like up and up, and we're like, how high does this game go? Like this is crazy, and like and then it just drops down on the rock and launches some shards, and like I also love too, like it kind of almost reminds me of like Kingdom a little bit, even in that way, the way it's like kind of side scrolling, and like you just have like that one main resource of like coins, or in this case shards, and like just like you don't have to like overthink. I know there's a few other layers to it beyond that, like you said, like the ascension kind of mechanic and that kind of stuff, but I really liked how it came together so simplistically, but how every layer just unrolled another layer, or multiple layers, or like a fork in the road where you could pick a few different options. Like it's just such a cool game.
Yeah, idols are a good genre. I like thinking about them. I like how thinking about the design of how people make them. It's they're fascinating.
They're very fun to think about. Yeah, they're games that stick in your craw a little bit for sure.
100%.
Yeah. That's one that I'm probably going to scoop up at some point, because even like because you were playing it on your Steam Deck on your TV, and this game is definitely not one that is optimized for actually playing on a Steam Deck. Like John's like literally using a joystick to move the cursor around, and like it's meant to be played with a mouse and clicking on stuff. So the fact that it was still enjoyable to even watch him go through the tediousness of playing it like that, but like let alone to be like dealing with it, playing it that way, and just be like, this game's fun enough and engaging enough to keep dealing with it. That's cool.
Yeah, that wasn't a through line I had thought about, but this and Hexle not having really controller support.
Yeah.
Didn't stop you.
No.
Yeah, that's a good sign. Sign of a good game. Yeah, another sign
for sure.
If you're brute forcing it on the Steam Deck, yeah. Oh man, but anything else before we wrap things up tonight on the video games talk, guys?
No, sir.
Good deal. Well, as always, you can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com, and otherwise, we'll catch you next week. And until then, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Got a frozen Randall at the last second here.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh man!
At least I'm happy.
Yeah, that is you got a good like little happy like squint going on.
There you go.
Oh man, that was a fun one though.
Yeah.